One of the worst thought habits that I used to have that really drove me into burnout was believing that I was lazy, that I was managing my time poorly, or that I wasn't trying hard enough. When really the truth of what was going on was that I was overwhelmed. Given that I had just had a baby, we had just moved to a new house, I was helping my newly diagnosed special needs kid with school, all the while I was running a time-intensive Etsy shop, I don't think anybody in their right mind would have called me lazy, except me. Our own internal dialogue can be drastically out of sync with reality, and this can cause us a major emotional struggle. At the very least, it can cause you to have extra stress on a daily basis, and at the worst, it can drive you right into burnout. And my guess is if you're watching this video and you're regularly Googling things about productivity and watching YouTubes about how to manage your time better, it's pretty unlikely that you're lazy. And the reason that you're not getting the things done that you want to get done is because you're overwhelmed. If, for example, you're at work one day and you get super motivated to clean your desk at home, and then you get home and you take one look at that giant stack of papers that you would have to go through, and then you turn around and run the other way, that's overwhelm. You're not procrastinating because you're not motivated or because you don't care. It's just that when you go and set your mind to the task, you realize the size of what you're asking yourself to do, and suddenly it feels like your brain just can't process all of that at once. So today I'm going to be giving you a bunch of strategies that you can use when you find yourself avoiding doing the thing that you just want to be done with already. Okay, so in this list are some ways that you can use to manage your everyday life so that this feeling of overwhelm is less likely to happen. And then there are other ways that you can use to dig yourself out when you are ready to run and hide. Okay, let's start with getting your current overwhelm under control first. While the systems to prevent overwhelm are great, you probably can't put any of them in place right now anyway because you're too overwhelmed. One of the first things to do to get your overwhelm under control is to figure out what's causing it in the first place. Some of the obvious answers are probably my workload or school or this disaster of a mess of a house. Those answers are not actually specific enough. Stop and consider the 1 to 2 very specific things that are causing you to shut down, and then think about why it's making you feel that way. Do you have a massive project looming and you don't even know where to start? Then break it down into its most basic chunks and do the 1 to 2 tiniest baby steps just to get you started. If it's something that's going to take you a really long time, like a semester-long project or writing a book over the course of the year, this is a great place to break that project down into time frames. Don't look at it as a whole semester or the whole year. Break that time frame into half and then half that again until you get yourself into a month by month or a week by week understanding of what needs to be done, and then just focus on that time frame that's right in front of you. And while you're breaking down everything and planning it all out, I want you to consider this next tip, and that is to be more rigid about how many hours that you allot to work on a project. There is a principle called Parkinson's Law, and it states that work expands to the time allowed. So if, for example, you give yourself 6 hours to work on a project, particularly if it's a creative project, it's going to take you 6 hours. But if you only give yourself 2 hours, you're going to get it done in 2. That's not to say that you could take a project that should take you months and say, well, I'd like to get it done in 2 hours and physically be able to do that. But what it does say is don't take a project that you know should take an hour and give yourself all day to do it, because then it's going to take all day. In this vein of not allowing yourself too many hours to do something is also not narrowing down the size of a project for yourself. Overwhelm tends to kick in when something is too big to imagine or there are too many options to choose from. Think of it this way. What if I said I wanted you to design me a piece of clothing? Any piece of clothing in any color, from any time period, for any occasion, in any fabric. And then I just dropped you off in an enormous fabric store. That's overwhelming because it's too many choices to make. But these are the kinds of things that we're faced with every day, even for the smallest decisions. If I Google leggings, I get 779 billion results. And if I search for them on Amazon, I get over 30,000 options. It's no wonder that we shut down. Nobody has the kind of bandwidth to sift through all of that information. So if when you consider the thing that's overwhelming you, you realize that it's because you have too many choices to make, then it's time to start creating some boxes for yourself. With the clothing example, you could start narrowing things down with what piece are you going to make, and then what country, what time period, what occasion, what fabric, what color. Suddenly you've gone from anything in the whole world to a dress worn by a wealthy woman in the 18th century in India in colors of red and gold. Suddenly, this whole project is less overwhelming and more manageable. If you're shopping, narrow yourself down to just a couple of stores, or give yourself 15 minutes to make a decision and then go with it. If you have a paper or a project to do, narrow that topic down as tightly as possible. If the whole house is a disaster, start with one room, or even what I have to do, start with one surface. When it comes to overwhelm, get as laser focused as you can at the beginning, and then if you have to, you can expand as necessary. And while you have gone through and examined this whole thing, do you notice any parts of it that are almost done? If so, see if these are some things that you can knock out right now. Often, even if they aren't the most important parts of the project, getting some stuff off of your plate will lift a huge mental load off of you, and it will give you that feeling of progress that will help keep you going forward. Okay, so hopefully some of those tips helped you get your overwhelm under control, and now you can start assessing what you can do to help prevent it from building up in the first place. One of my favorite methods for doing this is to not set hard and fast goals for yourself, but to set goal levels. First, you set yourself a realistic goal, and then you set yourself a minimum under that and a maximum over that. Let's say realistically, every day I would like the kitchen to be clean. Dishes done, counters wiped, floors swept. But let's be real here. Sometimes my energy is really low or time is short and I just cannot pull that off. So the minimum that I set for myself is that the dishes are under control. Basically, we have the ability to use the kitchen sink. And the maximum over that would be getting all of the things that I listed before done. And also maybe deep cleaning the counters a little bit by moving everything around, or maybe it also includes mopping the floors or getting the dining room table cleared off as well. Notice that I said or in all of that and not and. The maximum shouldn't be so high that it takes the whole day for you to do it, or it takes so much energy that you're exhausted at the end of it. The point of the maximum is to help those of us like myself that tend to get hyper-focused on something to actually stop working so that we don't overextend ourselves. But no matter how your energy tends to run, you're probably going to have a problem with one of these limits. When you're setting these limits, make sure that you're being realistic about what actually needs to be done so that you don't get behind on the days that your energy is really low. And also make sure when you set your maximum that it's enough for you to feel fulfilled, but that the next day you're not so exhausted that you can't do anything else. And speaking of energy levels, it's time to talk about rest. One of the things that's particularly hard about the busy lives that we lead is not filling every single free moment with something. It doesn't even have to be work related. Just having something on your calendar all the time is exhausting. If you're like me and you struggle with the feeling that you have to be productive all of the time, just remember that rest is not a waste of time. Muscles grow and repair while they're at rest. The brain gets creative and solves problems when it has time to wander. So block out some time in your schedule for some real free time, and don't decide what you're going to do in that time until the time comes. And then in the moment, do whatever it is that makes you happy and that you're excited about. If that's lying around on the sofa reading a trashy novel, or sitting at the dining room table with a drink and a coloring book, all of those are perfectly good uses of your time. Another tip to help you prevent overwhelm is to make sure that you have enough time built into your schedule for when life goes haywire. Earlier, I talked about making sure that you didn't leave too much time to get something done, but there is also the flip side of that coin, and that's not trying to cram too many things in too short a time. If you're overscheduled, that is definitely going to lead to overwhelm. So if this is something that you tend to do, then make sure you start building some buffer zones into your schedule. This might look like blocking out a half hour every day so that you can catch up on some things that you had been working on. Or maybe you block off every Friday afternoon to kind of catch up from the past week. And don't stress that this will be wasted time if you end up not needing it. You can always use it to get ahead on the next day, or the next week, or use it to recover from the week that you just had. The next tip is to see where can you set some boundaries and delegate some of your workload. Now, these things can be done individually, but they also make sense to do as a pairing together, because maybe you have people that come to you too much for something that they could actually be doing. In fact, some of those people might be small and have half of your DNA. If they are really little, obviously this can be the reason for all of your overwhelm. And all I can say is that I have been there and that it gets better. But if they are older, it's actually worth figuring out what they might be capable of and teaching them to do some things on their own. The simplest things like bringing their laundry to the laundry room or teaching them how to make their own breakfast can help relieve some of that mental load that makes getting overwhelmed as a parent so easy. If you have people that work for you, see what you can do about empowering them to do more of the work for themselves and look at what you might be able to let go to them. And if you don't have anybody, then it might be time to look into outsourcing some of the things. What do you do on a daily or a weekly basis that if you were able to drop would help give you a whole lot more mental space? Get groceries delivered, or have a cleaning service come in once or twice a month, or do a childcare swap, or have meals delivered, either partially done like a HelloFresh thing or completely done so that all you're doing is heating them up. Okay, so this next method might take some soul searching, but I'm telling you that it's completely worth it. Ask yourself, what are some beliefs that you are clinging to that are contributing to your overwhelm? Thomas Frank talked about this in his video that he did about his burnout, that he believed that he had to do 4 to 5 videos a month or he would not be able to pay his staff. This kept him on track to burnout because he didn't believe that he could regroup or slow down ever. But then he sat down and did the math and figured out that he could actually pay his staff and keep going on 2 videos a month. Dropping 2 to 3 videos for a little while helped him get his mental well-being back together. And I'll link his video down in the description below so that you can watch the whole video. So, what do you assume that you must continue to do that you could actually drop or at the very least reduce, and that it won't cause the loss that you think it will? I bet there's at least one thing that you could take off of your plate, even if it's only for just a little while, that would help you massively get control of your overwhelm. If you enjoyed this video, then check out the end screen. I'll have a couple of videos linked there that you might be interested in. One about how to be productive instead of busy, and the other one about mental load. Also, before you leave, hit the like button. And if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Dog. Hi, can I help you? Can you lay down? Reality. Okay, the panting is loud. Are you for real right now? Could you please pick a spot? Motivated to clean your desk at home, but then you get home and you please stop chewing on my chair. Fabric from any time, occasion. What? It's particularly hard about the busy lives that we lead. And don't stress. Get your meals delivered. Either have your meals delivered. Why can't I say either?